So you've been doing this for almost 7 years now. I'm curious, what made you flip the switch and decide you're going to become an entrepreneur after having worked at, CA and Intuit and all the rest? How did you convince yourself that you were ready to be an entrepreneur?
The problem kind of convinced me. And I was at that point in my lifetime, personally, I was in the point in my lifetime where I thought, I've been working in the technology field for so long. What is my legacy going to be in some sense? And I said, do I want to be another CTO, or maybe get promoted to be a CEO, or do I want to really change the technology landscape? And if you look at the technology landscape is about minor evolutions and then a revolution. When I talk about revolution, it's about people are writing hardware device drivers, operating system came up. That's the revolution. And people no longer have to write device drivers. Then there were like 30, 40, 50 different operating systems, and Java came in, and people didn't have to worry about individual operating systems. And people then had all different data centers that they have to manage for every company. Coke had a data center, Pepsi had a data center, everyone in the world had a data center. And then the cloud providers came up and said, oh, you don't have to have a data center, we'll take care of it. When data centers came up and things moved to the cloud, the next revolution was the SaaS-based services. Why do you have to run an entire sales force application within your platform? Use Salesforce. Or why do you have to do your payments? Use Stripe or use PayPal. There's the next revolution, right? And I was thinking, I was into it. I was thinking, what is the next revolution that needs to happen to take technology to the next level? And I said, every engineer in the world is repeating the same thing over and over again. We have a huge demand of engineers, and yet we are wasting engineers doing the regular update and upgrade maintenance. And that's the problem that I'm setting out to solve, where Onymos is a technology platform that provides all of the abstraction layers to all of the APIs, operating system layers, and middle tiers and stuff that your engineers are focused on what's important for your business. So that's how I came up on the entrepreneurial route.
And so, let's keep talking about this journey because it's fascinating to me. So you decide to jump in, you start the business. How do you go about it? I mean, what did you do? How did you start? What was like the first year like?
So we knew what problem we're going to solve. The problem is about engineering teams wasting their time doing grunt work of building applications, right? The core piece of the applications. And we said, okay, we are a small team. Like I was investing my money and I got a seed funding. And I said, what is the fastest way to prove that this actually will work? And I said, I'm going to take a very, very narrow vision, which is I'm going to start with mobile apps. And let's take just mobile apps. And the vision was always to do every application in the world. But I started with mobile applications. I said, we're going to build a platform that provides all the basic stuff that a mobile application developer has to do. And we built an inventory. We'll take any two applications on your phone and look at all the common things. Most applications have a login. Most applications have a chat. Most applications have a media functionality, taking photographs and video. Most applications have notifications, and some applications have payments. And we said, what if there is a company that Onymos that provides all these basic features out of the box, that anyone that wants to build an app takes all these basic things that they don't need to build anymore, and whatever innovation that they want to make is what they are focusing on. And that's what we did. And the major innovation, two big innovations that we did in providing this platform was, one was I put myself in the buyer's seat and I said, if someone comes to me and says, hey, you're building a $1 billion company with a mobile app, use my platform, would I trust them? And my answer kept going back to, no, I won't trust them. Because what happens if the platform fails? And the way that we solved the problem was we licensed the entire source code. If someone gets a source code, then there's a level of trust there to say, I can put my engineers to go fix any problems. It's as if my engineers wrote it. So that was the first thing. And the second thing was about data. This platform take the data to its own cloud and keep it and store it and process it and stuff like that. And I said, no, I don't want my data to go to anyone else because I'm building a $1 billion company and I don't want my data to go into anyone else, right? So as a platform, we said this will be a no data architecture platform, meaning that our customers' data will not even transit through anything that Onymos holds or controls. So It's asked, we give source libraries, either abstracted based on the pricing tier or actual source code. You pull it in, you build your app, your customer's data goes to your app to wherever you want to keep your data. We are not in the data path at all. So that's how we started this company with those two big architectural things and focused on mobile. We grew, then we do web, we do IoT, we do a bunch of other things now.
So who was the first deal you sold?
An engineer, a person building an application out of Texas. So he actually wanted just one feature of the mobile app, which was media feature. He said Android had so many different variations of cameras and video cameras and stuff like that, and iOS had its own variations, that his engineering team was like sick and tired of handling all that. And he said, oh, can there be a thing that I can buy? And we sold it to him for $99 a month. And that's how it started.
That's how it gets going.
That's how it gets going. Yes.
So has it been primarily mobile that you found traction with, or is it now started to really move across all web apps?
So we started, the game plan has always been to do applications in general. I don't differentiate between web application versus mobile application versus watch application or a TV application. Application is an application. The form factor is just a second order thing, right? The game plan has always been to do all applications. So we started with mobile, and very quickly we enlarged our scope to web applications, and then we saw IoT applications having its own set of challenges, so we support IoT applications too. So that's what we did. And then in terms of our business model, we started with developers that are building applications, small development teams, not developers, small development teams building applications. And quickly we moved upstream to companies that are mid-tier SMBs, and now we are at enterprise. So now that we have full breadth of the product, we exclusively focus on enterprise and not so much on SMBs or individual development teams anymore, or individual developers anymore. We are in the SMBs and above. This is what we target.
So, and I appreciate it. We're in the enterprise tech space, and certainly the applications are far more custom, and as a result, I think probably more requiring more hands-on strategy, primarily in initially than perhaps some B2C stuff. But tell me about how you're seeing the prevailing wisdom that AI is going to come along and make coding irrelevant. And the CEO of NVIDIA has come out and said everybody's a coder, nobody should be a coder. What do you think where do you see it going? I'm curious.
I still think that another 500 years from now, there will still be the requirement for an intellectual to deal with systems. Whether it is through coding or whether it's through something else, what you're going to call it is going to be different. So generative AI or artificial intelligence is going to make an individual developer's job a lot easier. You don't have to go through 20,000 or not 20, maybe 200 articles in Stack Overflow to find out anything anymore. You can actually go ask an LLM engine, hey, how do I solve this problem? Or give me a code snippet using Copilot, and you can take it and put it. Makes your capability much faster, right? But what's not going to change is there are still going to be problems that requires human ingenuity to solve it. And those people are going to be still around. If a smart engineer coming out of school today, if they think of AI to be a threat to their job, they've lost the battle. If they think as an AI to be the tool that they're going to use to make the job better, where they're doing higher order of thinking and getting stuff out, then that's the kind of technology landscape that we're going to be building, where people are going to be doing a lot more that AI can't do.
What's the implication here? I mean, it would be my sense that if AI effectively leapfrogs you through Copilot or whatever through that initial rudimentary coding step, what's a career path for a software developer now? I mean, I would assume most software developers begin grinding code and understanding the basics of computer programming language in order to become that strategic thinker, and they have that baseline knowledge of what it means to be, a grunt coder. junior developer, whatever you want to call it. If you eliminate that, what is the implication for, that career path? I mean, do you need junior developers at all? And if you don't, where does the farm team come through? I mean, how do they graduate up? I mean, basically everybody's going to be running a shop of digital assistants.
Right. So I'll take you back in history and I'll bring you back. So when I was graduating in the late 90s, people had to know a lot about hardware. People had to know a lot about hardware and figuring out how to deal with the hardware. An engineer graduating today has no inclination about memory usage or CPU throughput and speed, because it's all taken care of. Does it? And hardware engineers to software engineers was a transition that was happening. And people are going, oh my God, if operating system takes care of everything, there's not going to be a need for as many hardware engineers. And why are you graduating as an hardware engineer? There are going to be very few jobs for a software engineer. 20 years later, we still have a lot more demand for software engineers. Going back to today, the difference between a software developer and a software engineer is going to become a lot more in the upfront. A software developer, in my definition, is someone that takes instructions on what needs to be built and develops that software. A software engineer is a person that engineers the product and actually engineers what needs to be done and then does it. Whether that person does it or whether the person makes the AI do it is going to be seen in the next 3-5 years. But more importantly, my prediction for the future is the entry-level job in a software company is probably going to be like a junior architect in a few years from now. Take architects in large enterprises today. These architects, many of them don't write code anymore. They architect systems, they architect processes, and then they pass it down to software engineers to engineer the pieces and then software developers to develop the code for it. The architects themselves are not writing code.
But they did at one point develop the code to become that level. They were familiar. This is where I'm disconnected. Is what happens when you eliminate the need to even understand the code anymore. I get that the engineer is going to say or the architect is going to say I know my strategic vision, but I also know that with the perspective of what it's going to take to code it, because I coded it before I was the architect. Most likely, right? That was the progression, right? I'm assuming.
That's true.
If you eliminate that, how does it? Where I think this, I don't know. I'm curious to see how that evolution begins to kind of unwind, because what's the path? What's the path? There's only going to be it narrows as you go up the pyramid, right? There are more developers than there are architects. There are more engineers or engineers and architects. I mean, what's the path? And what if AI is effectively eliminating the bottom layer?
I can give you a lot of analogies from other industries, but I'll stick with the software and I'll tell you what an engineer did back in the late 90s is phenomenally different from what an engineer out of school does right now in 2024. All right? Do you agree with that premise? What is going to happen in 2030 is going to be phenomenally different from what an engineer graduating out of school is going to be doing, like is doing today in 2024. And this is what it's going to be. The same way that engineer today does not worry about the hardware anymore. The engineers barely know how things are up. The program that they write are compiled into assembly and converted into machine language code and actually run inside the computer. No, not many engineers even know that. I will wager that it's less than 1% of the software engineers and software developers that are writing code even knows how compilers work and how the system actually does it. Fast forward 5 years, 10 years from today, the entry-level job, like I said, is going to be architect's level job, junior architect level job, where the person coming out of school is going to sit and think in terms of, hey, I have to build this application. What are the blocks of thing that needs to be built? How does data move? How do data processes happen and stuff? And the training that they get in college is not going to be anymore about CPUs or operating systems or even about languages and stuff like that. They are actually going to start in thinking in terms of systems and processes and architecture, that the entry-level job will be a junior architecture job. And then from junior architecture job, they keep growing up to architecting a lot more things that we don't even today comprehend and what those are going to be today.
So do you see...
That's what I think it's going to be.
Do you see... as these things become more available and the Onymos software as well, right? The Onymos system is certainly in that spirit of kind of enabling people with more powerful tools so that they don't have to have a full team of developers underneath them necessarily to develop the apps that they're architecting. Do you see all of this power driving more innovation and more smaller business creation? And I mean, where do you see it going? I mean, I know you've started to focus on the enterprise, but I'm curious if it's that much easier for anyone to build any app using AI and Onymos and all the other tools that are available to them now at a reasonable cost. Where do you see the implications for that in terms of the apps that are ultimately developed? Is it still going to be primarily driven by enterprise, or is it going to be, coming from every direction?
The threshold for creating applications is falling, and it will continue to fall even at a much drastic pace, right? Go back 20 years, 2000, someone had an idea to create an application. Someone really cannot create an application because you need to build a data center and so on, right? It took a lot of money to set up a data center, to wire the servers, wire the storage, and build an application back in 2000. 2020, one guy or two guys in a garage can actually sign up for a free account at one of the cloud providers and then start to build an application and then connect through APIs to all the different functions and services that they need for their application and do it very quickly. It's going to fall even more that you don't even need to have a computer engineering degree to build an application. You can actually go to a LLM engine and then say, or a generative AI and say, this is the business idea that I have. Build me an application and put it onto the Apple App Store or an Android Play Store, or even host it at a GoDaddy website for me as a web application. And AI can probably do it in the next few years. That's going to happen. So the bar is going to continue going down, where the threshold to create an application is going to be so low that almost anyone that wants to build an application can build it. So that does mean that everyone that's building an application is going to be the next billionaire, trillionaire? Probably not, right? The answer is that you have to get creative in terms of what is that your application is doing. How are you differentiating yourself from there? How are you monetizing? What's the commercial model for the application? That's why I said you get pushed to the next level of abstraction, or the next layer, where it becomes a lot more tougher, but a lot more higher order thinking that needs to come in. So I'll give you a historic analogy. Facebook came up and created this messaging platform that everyone was able to connect, and then WhatsApp did something different with international and stuff like that. I can tell you personally, I at least know of 8 or 10 different people that said, oh, I can build something in that same line and become $1 billion company. And every one of them crashed and burned.
Right? I'm old enough to remember Spoke.
Yes.
Back when Spoke, and when it was head to head, Spoke and LinkedIn, and whether Spoke was, I remember thinking Spoke's going to win, but nobody you might remember Spoke. Nobody remembers Spoke.
And the reason is that it's not anymore the technology piece of building the application. It's the business piece of how do you make money from the application, and how are you going to bring people onto your application and so on the consumer end. On the enterprise side, it's going to be the same thing. It's like, how is your business going to get that next level of innovation towards whatever your business is? Your business could be airlines or whatever, and that's what's going to decide.
Yeah. So you've been in some of the biggest boardrooms in the planet. You were at Intuit. You were at CA. You're building your own business. You're working for others who are building other apps. where do people fall down when they start thinking about building an app? What do they get wrong when they say, I'm going to go build this thing and it crashes and burns, like you said? What do you think is the secret sauce to having success?
I always believe in Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind in terms of market research. What is like the amazing $1 trillion idea in your mind might not be the $1 trillion idea for your prospective customers. So start with the market, research the market, understand whether the market really has a need for it and whether they'll put money on the table for you to get that. No longer is the idea of getting 1 million users on my application and being able to turn around and sell it to another company. That threshold has completely changed, right? You need to have 100 million free users before you can actually even sell your company to someone else now. So that model is broken already. So if you're starting either a B2C or a B2B enterprise, start with the market and find out what is the pain point that you're there to solve, whether the people are willing to pay for you to solve the pain point. I go this other thing about painkillers, vitamins, and candies, right? The painkillers, if you solve the painkillers are stuff that people buy. Vitamins, some people might buy it, some people might not buy it. Candy is an optional purchase. So you really have to do enough market research to find out whether your idea is a painkiller or a vitamin or a candy, and then pursue only the painkiller idea. And not just that, yep, there is pain. How pervasive is the pain? How many people have that pain that you want to solve for, right? And then start from there and then work backwards from there. And very quickly, if you're honest to yourself, you'll find out that 99 of your 100 ideas are not going to see the light of the day.
It is the harsh truth, and a good truth, honestly, and another harsh truth that I want to dig in on with you, because I know you've given this a lot of thought, which is the vulnerabilities to building applications, and the vulnerabilities to data, and the vulnerabilities to AI leveraged code generation and LLMs. I mean, talk a little bit about your perspective on security vulnerabilities in general with regard to application development and ultimately the security of the data it's capturing and so forth.
There is a ticking time bomb that most people are not even realizing that it exists amidst us today. And I wrote a blog about this, that internet is implemented wrong. It's a very out there title, but I'll tell you, when internet was started, people were in universities wanting to share data between each other and said, I have my data, I want to share with this other university and stuff. And that's how internet got started. But unfortunately, what happened was data got to collide. Like there started happening black holes. If you take AWS is a black hole for information. Google, GCP, Azure, every SaaS company out there is a black hole for data. And that in itself is a problem for two reasons. One, if those data get compromised, a lot of people get affected. And those data are honeypots for hackers, both state and non-state hackers. Your financial information, why do people attack Bank of America or Wells Fargo or someone? Because they know that if I hack into that system, I get 1 million users' records and I can exploit that to make money. So there's lucrativeness in that. But if the data was spread across and you kept your financial data and I kept my financial data, a hacker has no motivation to do that. A hacker has literally no motivation to hack into just Doug's or Shiva's account, because the maximum that he's going to make from that is probably a few $100,000, right? As opposed to tens of millions of dollars.
So is this a blockchain approach you're talking about?
Not exactly. I think it's even different than blockchain. Blockchain is about transaction and capturing transaction and stuff.
But it's also about kind of individualizing the user from the network, right? So it's kind of right.
That's correct. Yeah, the data has to stay with the user, but that's the nirvana goal for me. Encryption, obfuscation and other things that you can do with the data by themselves is not self-sufficient. And I can go a little bit into that if required. But the idea that is, if you're building a company from scratch today, you have to really think long and hard in terms of which are the vendors that you're going to give the data to. Yeah, one, you're going to have a storage somewhere in the cloud. You're going to give the data to a storage. But how many SaaS services are you going to be connecting to? Are you going to go to Stripe to connect to Stripe? Are you going to connect to Okta, Auth0, PayPal, Salesforce, HubSpot, how many other people who all are going to get a copy of your data and your customers' data? You have to start thinking in those aspects and say, do I have another way of doing this where the data does not go to what I call as software as a service providers, and they provide only a software as a service, but don't take my data alongside. There is a problem with SaaS as well that I mentioned, which is SaaS was supposed to be, you give me software as a service, I pay you money. That was a deal. But instead, what happened was people gave me software as a service and in return took my money and took my data. And that's fundamentally wrong and broken. And what we are trying to do with Onymos is that, no, we provide you the software as a service, pay us only the money, but not your data. Your data needs to stay with you.
So is the opportunity here to basically rebuild all of these large software as a service companies on an Onymos platform so that now you can, your unique value proposition against them is data security?
Yes, it is. Yeah. From the time we started, I had fundamental problems with my data and my data privacy with social apps and stuff like that. That was my pet peeve. And when I started the company, I said, what are the two trust factors? One is that the licensing code I talked about, and the other is the data. And I said, I don't want my customers' data. I want my customers to keep their data. And the problem becomes a lot more exacerbated with the AI, because Zoom had this problem maybe a few months back now. Zoom started to train its AI models based on everyone that had a Zoom call, right? And let's say Zoom trained the data on 20 M&A conversations. And you actually go now ask the Zoom's AI training model, hey, what is the average valuation for Onymos? Zoom is going to spit it out because there was an M&A conversation that I probably would have been in where my pricing was discussed, right? That's scary.
So they're scraping private conversations. I mean, you're not publicly traded. You're they're scraping private board conversations that are being held virtually on the Zoom platform or whatever, Teams or wherever.
Right.
Yeah, that's oh well, I mean, so let's keep going here, because this is one of my pet peeves, which is
because we used software as a service provider, some conferencing software provider that just not take my monthly money but also took my data. And now there's a data clause there for them to train their models, or can they not train? You go read the terms and services. Recently, Carta had the same problem. Carta, that manages all of the books, had the same problem where they said they can use the data for their model training. Everyone that has the data, the biggest need for an AI engine is data. And everyone wants to feed it with every data that they can get. Why do you think Getty Images is suing ChatGPT and OpenAI? Because they use Getty Images data to train their model engine.
Well, so, and this is the conundrum of AI. It's, to a certain degree, the developers and the folks, the high-powered technology firms that are behind some of these LLMs and now, the actual generative AI interfaces, they can't stop. They can't stop. It's a proliferation issue at this point. It's almost like the Cold War. They get one ChatGPT 4, we need, our version of that, and it's a leapfrogging game to the point where we're going to, well, it can't stop. It can't stop itself.
Yeah.
That's my personal belief. It can't stop itself, and as a result, at some point. And this is the other concern that I don't think anybody, I'm sure you've thought about it, but I don't think a lot of people are thinking about it. It's going to add quantum computing into it. It's going to be able to overpower any encryption that exists. Am I missing something there? I mean, including blockchain and crypto.
Yeah. No, even before quantum computing, much before. I'll give you a specific example.
Well, thank you for freaking. I'll be leaving now. I'm gonna go head to the hills.
So what you essentially said is, this is an example that I give people. A person, John Doe, goes to the local hospital to get a blood test done. The local hospital follows the perfect security mechanism available today, takes the data out, the name, date of birth, and everything, takes the data piece out. But with country, adversarial country, and the way that they call it in the executive order is countries of concern, right? A country of concern can take that data that some male 45-year-old went to this particular hospital and gave a blood draw. They can take that data and look at how many people in that zip code fit that profile. It's almost like one of these Mission Impossible movies where they go, oh, let's zone into this person. Let's put this other data. Now they take Instagram data and say, how many people on that particular day were geolocated around that particular area near the hospital? And how many people there had posted something in a particular forum about one particular problem or disease or whatever. With that, very quickly, an adversarial country can quickly find out that this John Doe, this exact person, John Doe, living in this particular street address with this phone number, with his email address, let's say has a sexually transmitted disease, and now they can use it as a pressure point. If he or she is a government employee, use it as a pressure point against that particular person, right? Even though the individual pieces of the information were all following the up-to-date security things in terms of obfuscation, de-identification, encryption, and everything. And now we can do that very quickly because we can throw all this data into an AI engine and say, find out who this John Doe is. AI can sift through all these records, structured and unstructured, and quickly come back and say, yep, this is the one person that fits the profile.
So I mean, I think what you're saying, and unfortunately, is effectively that nobody will be anonymous anymore. Everybody can be unearthed down to their DNA. But more to the point, there isn't going to be a financial institution on the planet that can guarantee protection of your money. Like, how is this even going to work? Like, where do you see this? Where do you see it? Where do you see the solution? What's the solution to what's coming? Because what's coming is a freight train of sophistication that I don't think people are prepared for. So what is how does a bank protect this?
So three things are going to happen. The first thing is basically the carrot and the stick story. There's going to be a lot of sticks and a lot of laws that's going to be written saying that if bank gets robbed of the money, the person that robbed it, once that person is found, is going to be sentenced a lot more and stuff like that. There's going to be a lot more laws that's going to be written, right? That's a stick model. That's a stick is that, hey, if we find out, we're going to do it. We're going to roll back the transaction and make sure that you don't get your ill-gotten gains. That's going to happen. That's the first thing. The second thing that's going to start happening is the banks themselves are going to go and say, you know what? I don't want to keep this data. Data is good for me to do all this machine learning and stuff. A lot of companies are going to look at data as a liability. And they're going to start going that if I don't need to collect the data, I probably should not. The CISOs sitting in the buildings are going to say, oh, you're a bank information. Why do you want to collect the geolocation of the person? Let's not. If they're not going to provide me meaningful business value, let's reduce the amount of data that we're collecting. And from the consumers and from the data providers in the case of B2B, people are going to start asking the questions in terms of, do I really need to provide this data to you? Do you really need to provide this? The third thing that's going to happen is what my nirvana vision is that, which is the data is going to be a lot more spread across the internet. Maybe I'm hoping that within the 10, 15 years time frame where people are going to go, there is Doug. Doug keeps his health data, financial data, social data, everything in a hard disk, encrypted where he wants to keep it. It could be in a cloud. I'm not saying that you're going to keep it under your mattress.
But there'll be keys that will only be available to me.
You. And I'll give you another example of how this is going to play out. Let's say you're going to apply for a car loan. Let's say you're going to apply for a car loan for $100,000. Today, the car loan says, send me your last 2 pay stubs. Give me a permission to pull your entire credit history. Tell me your house net worth, and how much mortgage you have. Give me all this information to my data center. And then I'm going to run an algorithm and say that your interest rate for your car loan is 6.5%, right? Where they collect all this data to run an algorithm and say 6.5%. Instead, what Doug is going to do, hopefully 5-10 years from now, is that I have all my data. Now, hey, car loan company, come and run your algorithm on my data where I keep it. You're not going to get my data. Run the algorithm. And you decide, if the car loan algorithm says, I want to see your health data, you're going to say, no, for my car loan, you don't need access to my health data. It doesn't matter how healthy I am or what cholesterol numbers I have. Why do you need it? Cancel that and run it only on my financial health, like financial, your pay stub and stuff like that, and get just the data back and say 6.5%. Why do you need to get all my records into your data center?
And
that's going to happen.
And do you think this is going to be government by government that mandates this sort of data siloing, personal data siloing? I mean, that they're basically going to outlaw or going to need to outlaw that? Because I just don't, well, I appreciate the thought that data will become a liability. That's a shift in how they're going to think that is not going to happen easily. I don't think they're going to see it that way for a long while.
Yes.
Unless they're mandated.
Yeah, government is going to do some part of it, but government, as you know, technology is usually backwards.
Yep.
The companies that decide that data is my liability is start to do this more. They'll start with not collecting data, and then they'll start with saying, give me transient access to the data. You keep your data yourself, Mr. Dawes.
I love this. I love this thought. This is a great thought.
Thank you. Yeah. The other analogy is data. People say data is a new oil. And I'm going to say, we have come to a point, we're going to find out that oil is not great for the earth.
Well, and there's no way to put, your oil is not secure. I mean, the problem is that it's just too easy for somebody else to siphon.
Yeah. There's a lot of other climate effects kind of problem with the oil, which we keep the oil too. So that's what's happening with data right now. That problem is happening.
It's absolutely amazing. So let's start bringing it back down to kind of where you are kind of living on a day-to-day basis now. So what do you see is the trending movement around app development and I know you said you're working more along the enterprise line, but where are you seeing demand and what types of apps are you seeing folks looking for? Are they very custom? Are they very kind of internal, or are they continuing to build more external things?
There are a lot more apps getting built today than previously for very narrow use cases. People would have a monolithic app that was taking care of everything around the particular business, and people are going, oh, that's not really helping me. I want an app for this particular marketing use case. I want an app for this particular sales use case, or I want this particular app for a technology use case. And so a lot more apps getting built, both for internal users within an enterprise, as well as giving it to different segments of the market. No longer one monolithic app is going to make your business fly. So that change is happening. And in the app building itself, in the app development process itself, we ran a survey at Onymos, and we found out, we interviewed a lot of C-level executive CTOs and CIOs, and found out that 30 to 45% of an engineering team's time is spent on just maintaining the app. So for every engineer's time, 30, 40, 45% of the time is being spent on keeping that app updated to the latest and greatest ecosystem that it depends on. No one is building an entire app all by themselves today. Every app probably has like 20% of the code the developer writes or the engineering team writes, and 80% of it is integration to all the different SaaS services. There's a Statista study that says there are 110 enterprise integrations for every application that an enterprise makes. And just keeping those integrations up to date is where the bulk of the time is spent on. And people are realizing that that's horrible. That's like reinventing the wheel, and why am I doing it? So there's a movement towards stopping that piece. That's one. Then there's a movement across this data and data liability problems. And then there's one part of it is a data liability. The other part of it is like you're leveraging data, right? That's the pro of the data is having data to leverage data with AI models. And the liability problem is the con of the data problem. So that's where enterprises are finding time. So we at Onymos, we have, like I said, we started the company by saying focus on mobile, and then we went to web, and then we support IoT apps. And now we particularly focus on the health tech industry. So the reason why we focus on the health tech industry is that There are a lot more applications getting built on health tech, and health data is a lot more sacrosanct, where our messaging is resonating very well about how are you protecting your HIPAA related data. So that's where we're spending our time on with Onymos.
And so I was looking at that survey as well. There seems to be a lot of dissatisfaction with how long it takes to develop apps. Are you seeing speed increase in terms of how people are developing apps, and does that lead to apps that they shouldn't have built in the first place? I mean, sometimes it's a longer development cycle can sometimes unearth all kinds of reasons why, we should probably never even finish this app. I mean, how are you seeing it? Are there just a lot more being started, and you've kind of reduced the cost of failure, and so there's just a lot more underway?
I'll take mobile apps as a symbol for all applications, because we don't get web application data, we don't get IoT application data because they are not in an app store. Take mobile application as a sample or an example for all applications. There are 3 million applications in Apple App Store and Google Play Store. 99% of them are not making money for the company that built it.
Right.
They did not even break even for the cost of building that app.
And there's no penalty for not taking it down, right?
Yeah, there's no penalty for not taking it, except for the developer license. You pay $99 to Apple,
which is nothing, right?
Which is nothing. So there is 99% of the apps in the App Store don't make money for the company that actually built it. And if you go back and look at the percentage of applications that are not even updated in the last 2 years, 3 years, I would think it's like in the high 80% of them. It's not even getting updated.
They're just dead. They're just shells.
Yes. So why did all this money get invested? Because there was few apps that became billion-dollar enterprises, or even within an enterprise, there are few apps that really made it worthwhile for the enterprise to build and maintain it. Take my previous employer, TurboTax. The TurboTax mobile app makes a lot of money for Intuit. But if you go look at how often it's getting updated, it's getting updated like, I would say, almost every week or multiple times a week. But for every one of those apps, there are like a million other apps that are not getting updated. It's a vicious cycle. Your team is spending 45% maintaining the app. You don't want to do that. Your app is not getting updated. It's not new. People don't adopt it. Your rating goes down, and then it's like a flush down, right? That's what's happening in the app world. And when we talk to a lot of prospective customers, and we look at their applications, and they go, it was last updated 2 years back. And I said, 2 years is lifetime for an enterprise web application or IoT application or whatever, or mobile application. Right? And I said, how would it be if your application is magically updated for everything that's happening? That this platform, Onymos platform, magically updates you to the latest and greatest. And they go, wow, wouldn't that be nice? And that's the kind of customers that we are targeting and we're going. And very quickly, we can find out whether that investment is worth it for them or not, because does it provide them an ROI?
So how do you? And we're running out of time a little bit, but I can't not keep asking questions. So, I'll restrain myself, but I'm going to ask one more, which is, how do you do it? How do you present the value prop? Where are you finding traction within an organization? Are you going to where are you going directly to the organizations? Are you going to the developers and hoping that they're bringing your technology to their customers? I mean, is it a reseller relationship, or are you trying to sell direct?
We sell direct, and we do top-down sales. So we actually go to the C-levels or the VPs or the directors of engineering, depending on the size of the organization, and we make a business case to them. And the business case is clearly ROI and total cost of ownership. And we go, you have an engineering team that we are not trying to replace or reduce or whatever. Would you rather have your engineering team focus on your business critical problem, or would you rather have your engineering team spend 35-45% of the time doing this, at the same time having the full trust of having licensed source code and having the full trust of your data being with you? There's no other platform out there that does not take the data from them. And that message resonates, and the ROI and TCO speaks for itself, and that's why we make the sale.
Well, I have one more question. So what are the I'm always curious how you handle these things. What are the objections? Like that sounds like a very compelling story. So when you present that, where does it stick? I mean, obviously it's a funnel, not a tube, right? There's things that get stuck, and we all know that. I mean, I'm curious what you find are the kind of, popular objections or the singular popular objection.
NIH, not invented here mindset.
Oh, is that right? Is that right?
Yeah,
the non-homegrown. Is that a cultural thing with developers? Is that a cultural thing where there's kind of a pride of authorship that goes in? It's like, I can do this too, and it's kind of almost like a machismo. What?
Yeah, it's not about I can do this too. I can do this better.
I can do it better. Yeah.
Engineers have this. What makes a person a good engineer? A good engineer, he or she thinks that I am really good at architecting and solving.
And now that you've told me this secret sauce of yours, I can do that.
Yes. And it's always been the thing about, would you rather do that? Take an example. Let's say GCP updated its APIs today. Would you rather do that, or would you rather to go build the next coolest feature that you can demo to your executive management and get your promotion and bonus and a raise and stuff?
Right.
So that's
anybody could have bought Onymos. Anybody.
Yes.
That's great. That's great. It's good perspective.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Well, Shiva, I'm going to let you go. I know we're running out of time, and I don't want to, but I'm going to ask that you come back, because I thought this was a great conversation. And at some point, we're going to have a longer one about all the other things that are going to happen between now and the end of the year. But we love this space. It's always fascinating. Obviously, we would tell anybody watching to, and if you're looking to do app development, everything that you just heard here are things that you should have on your radar and absolutely be paying attention to. This has never been a more interesting time to be alive and in technology. So thanks very much for the time today. It was great conversation. I look forward to talking again soon.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. I enjoyed the questions, and I enjoyed talking to someone that was able to understand the problems about data and stuff like that. That was fascinating. The questions were very interesting, so got me going.
Solutions Review is inviting you to join InsightJam.com. What started a few years ago as a social media event to celebrate enterprise technology has now grown into an always-on tech community with live events, discussions, videos, vendor showcases, and industry resources. Our vetted roster of experts, thought leaders, and analysts are sharing tips and tricks daily. So if you're interested in getting involved, join the long list of companies and brands who have already participated by visiting InsightJam.com today. Now back to the show.